Hey everyone, my name's Luke and I'm an addict. I've been sober since February 11th of 2000. First I want to commend you guys for what this is about. I really appreciate that. I love what the aim is. You know, recovery is here, but a lot of times people don't feel comfortable in other rooms, and it's so important to be able to feel like you belong in the room you're in. If I'm sitting in a room and somehow I say, yeah, but I'm a little different, I'm in trouble. So that's why in the other fellowships, they really focus on the common problems because they're there. And you can work your way through it, but here, you know, we're in a different little different venue. So great. So let me just get right into it. So I guess my task is to talk about the doctor's opinion, and thank you, and I will. But I say this a lot. Probably you guys have heard it, but like I need to set everything up. I need to start like wide with my thinking and then kind of make it go a little more narrow and narrow and narrow and hopefully we'll really tune in. But what are we talking about? You know, I have a college degree in journalism, and I think I'm moderately intelligent, maybe less moderately, but right around there. If I just read this chapter in the vacuum, I don't think I'd get 20% of what it really aims to do. Because I don't have the reference point of what it's aiming for, where it's from, what it's about, before I even start to read it. So I'm always that kind of guy. Like, I never just hit the rim. I had to go back to the foul line, get that little running start. So I'm setting up the tone and the setting, if you will, the scenery. World War I kind of just ended. America was in it in 1917 and 18. It's gruesome war. The boys came home, kind of a thing. And as in any kind of war, and for crazy as it is, as terrible as they are, it usually brings an economic boom. And it did. Everyone came home, they got into jobs, they got into relationships and married and families and got houses. And you know, it's not a mistake that it's called the Roaring 20s. Think about that. I mean, America was in a good mood. Let's put it that way. And what's also crazy about it, as in 1920, booze was illegal. Prohibition came in 1920. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine today, all of a sudden, alcohol's illegal? For what it is in terms of everything, right? Like, whoa. So they come home, and from 20 to 33 or so, alcohol, the prohibition was in place. Now, did that stop drinking? Hell no. Not at all. It just created a whole bunch of other things. You know, backwoods stills and rum runners and bootleggers and bathtub gin and all these crazy speakeasies and stuff. The mobs came as almost really enhanced the mob reputation, if you will, and place, because they're the ones who controlled everything. So it's not stopping anything, but if anything, it's making things worse. What are we drinking? It's not even regulated. Like, like moonshine all over the place. So this is the world, though, that we're setting up. And there aren't rehabs. There aren't really detoxes of really anything. There's nothing really. So the problem was really bad, and there's no real solution, or at least alternative, really pretty much out there. There were this few drying out farms, whatever the hell that was. And there were a few hospitals, not a lot, but there were some hospitals that had an alcoholic wing. That's the world that we're starting this whole thing on. Bill Wilson is our co-founder. He drank and got himself into a whole bunch of crazies. He did sedatives and 2 bottles in oblivion and all this stuff. I'm not going to go into his story. But Bill Wilson ultimately ended up going to this Towns Hospital because he had some people had a little bit of stuff. And in the Towns Hospital was the director on the alcoholic wing. His name was William Silkworth. William D. Silkworth. The D is for Duncan. So when we have our little trivia down the road, we can all win coffee or whatever the hell. Or Dunkin'. Sorry. That's the setting I want to give you the background on, right? So now we got Dr. Silkworth. He was born in Eatontown, New Jersey. He ended up in his whole career treating over 40,000 alcoholics. He interned in Bellevue Hospital in New York in the alcoholic little section there. Baby Doc gave him the premonition. He lost all his money in the stock market crash. And then he went to work in Towns Hospital in New York City in the alcoholic wing. He's the director. There aren't too many of them around. He's done this for many years now, so he's one of the best around. Now, I'm going to jump here for a second here, okay? Because Silky's there. All right, let me do a little bit of that. So along comes Bill, like I said, and he can't stay sober, and he gets visited by his friend Ebby, who's in the Oxford group. The coincidences, which I don't know if I'll have time to go into, are unbelievable. Well, they're not unbelievable. They're just God-believable. But at any rate, Ebby visits Bill. Bill don't like what he says. Bill drinks more, ends up back in Towns Hospital for his third time, all right? And while he was there, though, he thought about what Ebby was saying, and he asked him to come visit him. So Ebby actually visits Bill in Silkworth's Hospital on his third time here, and that's where they really went through what the Oxford tenets were. There were 6 Oxford tenets, you know, dependence on God, restitution for harms done, you know, confession of defects. Their 6 tenets became our 12 steps. So Bill called Ebby back, and that's where he had his white light experience, and that's in the hospital, in Silkworth's Hospital, right? So that's where Bill then goes and gets out. Now, here's something and I'm really going to get into Silkworth in a minute, but I just got to set up. So Bill Wilson relapsed 3 times. He's sober a month or 2, but in the hospital, Bill had the thought that, man, a lot of people would know what Ebby told me. I want to tell them, and they can tell people, and they can tell people, and that became the germ of the AA fellowship. So Bill Wilson had that thought. So he comes back to Silkworth, who's running a hospital, who has a board of directors, right, and has bosses and trustees, and says, hey, let me talk to your alcoholics. Silkworth should have told him to get the fuck out of here. Really, dude, why don't you get sober a bit, you know? But he let him. He let him because he saw that change that started to happen in Bill. And Bill's not getting anyone sober, you know, but he's letting him do it, right? So this is the things. There's more to that I'm going to go into in a second, but here's why I want to start to talk about Silkworth in another way. He's worked with all these people. He's worked with alcoholics. And he recognizes that basically we're just drying him out. We were really a detox is what was going on. They gave him heavy sedatives. One of them they called belladonna. It's like a cousin of lithium. You know, they're giving them sedatives. They're really getting them healthier than they were to go back out into the world. They're not really trying to rehabilitate him too much, you know. Now, Silkworth had his ideas of what he wanted to do. And he's trying to do this, but they're not there for a long time, and he was never successful. In our book, it tells us one paragraph. It says, us doctors realize for a long... You know what? I always do that. Pardon for a second. My sponsor, I thank God for great sponsorship, right? So I was ready to just quote the paragraph. And my sponsor said, look, what are you doing? He goes, why don't you give it context of where it comes from? You ever think that someone might think you're saying that? Or that you triggered their thought. You might tell them, where are you getting this from? What page is it on? So they might go back later on. You know, I'm sitting there saying, deep down inside of every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. It may be blocked by some. And he's, you know, no, it's on page 55 in We Agnostics. So I was ready to do it again. So Silkworth, this is a very, very important paragraph that he reads that I don't think ever really gets a lot of its flair. XXVII. And this is Silkworth, and I'm going to put in reference to letter in a second. But in this paragraph, this is what he writes. We doctors realized for a long time that some form of moral psychology was of urgent importance to alcoholics, but its application presented difficulty beyond our conception. What would our ultramodern standards, our scientific approach, were not perhaps well equipped to apply the powers of good that lie outside of our synthetic knowledge. Fucking big word. I lost it. He lost me. But here's what he's saying. Us doctors, especially him, I knew what I was trying to do with these people. I'm trying to get them to have some sort of a psychic change. Fill in the blank, but that's their mind, their brain, their attitude, their behavior. I was trying to get some psychic change. But its application presented difficulty beyond a conception. I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know how to do it. He knew the end zone. He didn't have the path to it. He's like, fuck, I need to get this psychic change. But I don't know, I'm not successful. But he's treating tons of people, and here's his frustration, and here's his humility, and here's his real caring. His nickname was the little doctor that loved drunks. Silkworth, right? So this is happening in the late 20s and early 30s by now, right? Now, freeze frame, if this was a movie, we're going to stop, and everything's going to get wavy. And we're going to, we're going to cross the Atlantic Ocean. We're going to be in Switzerland. All right, we're in Switzerland right now. There's this dude called Roland Hazard. And this is in 31, I believe, 31, 32. Roland Hazard was a really rich guy from Vermont who was drinking like a fish, but his family was really rich, and he embarrassed them all over the place, so they sent him hunting, so he's out of the way, and he did this and this. He couldn't stay sober. Finally, he said, shh, and they go to send him to Switzerland to work with Carl Jung. There's three great psychiatrists in the world at the time: Freud, this guy Adler, and Jung. Thank God he went to Carl Jung, because Carl Jung had the thought that, well, there's possibility of some sort of spiritual thing. If he had Freud, Freud never would have had anything to do with any sort of a higher power in any sort of way. But he went to Carl Jung. And Carl Jung's with him for months, working with Roland Hazard, his name is. In our book, it's called A Certain American Business, and it starts on page 27. And it really never gets the full depth of what it really is. It's one of the greatest things. Bill Wilson says, this guy, Roland Hazard, this guy, a certain American businessman, going to see Carl Jung, he calls it the first link in the chain that becomes Alcoholics Anonymous. So, and in our little thing, it's 2 pages and it doesn't get the clout. But at any rate, this dude's with Carl Jung for months, and he gets so much better. And he leaves Switzerland, and he don't get past France, and he's drunk again. And he's pissed as all hell. I just spent months with one of the best psychiatrists, and I'm drunk already. And he goes back and he goes, what the fuck, man? I'm filling in the loop blank, He goes, come on, man. I'm with you all this time, spent all this money. I can't get past France. Come on, what's going on? Carl Jung goes, you want to know? I really didn't even want to work with you. I hate you alcoholics. I've never really been able to help you. I've never been successful with alcoholics. Now, I know what I want to do. I try to get them huge emotional displacement and rearrangement. Because they got to get a whole new set of ideas, emotions, and attitudes and put them back in. But I've never been successful with alcoholics like you. That's it. And Roland Hazard goes, what the fuck, what? And he goes, yeah, the only thing I can suggest is, and I don't know how to do it, but I've read in other books, a variety of religious experiences, that, once in a while, people that have really bad problems, not just alcoholics, really crazy calamity, somehow get this stirring spiritual experience and they're able to overcome their problem. So maybe you need to do that. So here's where I want to put this all in place. At the same time, a great doctor of psychiatry trying to help alcoholics knew what he wanted to do, but he didn't know how to do it. And in America, at the same time in the world, right, in the history of the world, around the same time, a great doctor is working with alcoholics. He knew what he wanted to do, but he didn't know how to do it. These two great men of science, though, really were so important for us later on, because when then Bill Wilson and he goes out and meets Dr. Bob and he comes back and they decide we better write his steps. So he starts to write these steps and they come out to be 12 steps. And these 12 steps, as done, directed at this, all of a sudden is getting what we call a spiritual awakening. Now, we call it a spiritual awakening or experience. Later on, we also say it could be a personality change, sufficient enough to recover from alcoholism. We say we get a profound alteration in our reaction to life. Isn't that just like psychic change that Silkworth was his words? And moral psychology? I really think they're the same things. How about what Jung was saying all along? Ideas, emotions, and attitudes. That's psychic change. That's personality change. Huge emotional displacement and rearrangement. So when Silkworth particularly saw what was happening. That's the finish line. That's the path. The 12 steps are the path to where these great men of science always wanted us to go and didn't know how to get. So he became a huge advocate for us, Silkworth. One more little lucky thing that we did is so Bill's working with all of these guys and none of them are getting sober. And Silkworth's kind of listening, but he's running this hospital, right? And we'd have been sued for malpractice if he'd let anyone do it nowadays, right? But at any rate, so Bill goes home and he's frustrated. He tells his wife, he goes, I'm working with these guys for 4 months now, nobody's sober. And he goes, yeah, but Bill, you are. Think about that. So he's continuing to do it, but he still gets frustrated. He's about 6 months sober. And he's frustrated, but this time he tells it to Silkworth, man, I'm pissed. I'm trying. I talked to every one of these guys, and no one's getting sober. And Silkworth said this, and it's really key. These little tiny, tiny threads. He said, you know what? I've been listening. Do you want to know why? I've been kind of listening, but I'm letting you do your thing. You're talking to all of these people who are coming in from the street and they're just barely finished shaking. And you're talking to them about a spiritual experience that you had where the wind came through and the lightning bolt happened and God came to me majestically on a mountaintop. You're talking all about that and the great change. What you're not doing is getting them to understand how fucked they are. It's really what he said. How ego deflation has to happen at depth level. You got to get them to feel hopeless. You got to get them to feel like the problem. You got his phrase, you got the cart before the horse. You can't talk about the solution until they know the problem. Bill, oh man, he goes, yeah, I get it. And guess what? A week later, where does Bill go? To Akron, Ohio, on a business venture that doesn't work out. Probably the first guy he's trying his new way to do it is on Dr. Bob. So now we come out with the book. Now we're really going to get into Silkworth. So Bill Wilson writes it. If he said he was more of a referee than an author because Akron wanted this, New York wanted that, and it took a little while. And finally, and then how to get it published was unbelievable with all of the craziness that went on. But we finally get a book, and it's ready to be published. And Bill, he's the biggest salesman ever. And this got to be a success. This is our baby. Who the hell is going to believe us 100 schmoes? What are we? Nobody knows us. Only my neighbors. That's about it. And we're going to say we got this solution to this epidemic problem that's been on since the beginning of time. Who the hell's going to believe us? What we need, we would call it today, we need street cred. And Silver, hold on here before we put the book out. I know a guy. Let me go talk to Silky. Let's see what he can do for us, because he's all into it now. And so Silkworth wrote a letter. And if you open the book and read later on, he wrote a letter, and he wrote this one-page letter, and I'm sure it's terrific and stuff. He even says, hey, you can rely on these guys. And Bill Wilson, I could just as Luke imagining now, gets his letter of endorsement that he's been looking for. And it's like a one-pager. He's like, dude, this is what you got? Come on, we're ready to put this book out. So he goes, it says in here, the physician who, at our request, enlarged his views in a second letter. So he went back and asked him for another letter. So what we're reading here, in the doctor's opinion, that's in Roman numerals. Why Roman numerals? It wasn't in Roman numerals in the very first edition. He was on page 1. But after that, they recognized, well, he's not in AA, and it's a recommendation, really more is my words, but that's what it is. So from the second edition on, he was in Roman numerals, his story. So that's where it is. And I never read Roman numerals. Who does that shit, right? So I never read this. I scooped right past it and, of course, suffered all the time. So I just want to talk on 2 or 3 more key points, and then we'll let it go. But then again, I just need to put it like that. One of the really biggest things by far that Silkworth put out there, as he's seeing all these alcoholics, though, he's a smart man. He's done this for a long time. He's like, yeah, we might be a bunch of clowns. We might be a bunch of thieves. We might be a bunch of immoral, whatever's. But there's something else going on. I can see it. There's something else here. There is a situation with these guys physically. There's a physical part to this that no one knows or talking about. He goes, he is the first one to come out with this phrase called phenomena. I don't know why, unknown. Phenomena of craving. He calls it an allergy. Physical component to this disease. Hold on about the mental for a second. We're just saying physically there's something else there too. And that when an alcoholic, when a person takes something in their body reacts differently. And I'm not a scientist, but it breaks it down, and like little Luke World goes, whoa, that was fucking good. Give me more of that. And the body tells the brain, and the brain says, well, okay, yeah, you're right. And all of a sudden, then we get more in us, and then we want more. And so now we're into craving this, and we're in it now. We lose sanity, we lose smart decision making, we do things against our own best interest. And for me, that ends up in a spree. And boy, for this meeting, do I end up on sprees when I put something in my body, boy. That first hit, I'm done. I'm done. I know I'm not stopping. And so there is a physical component to alcoholism, as he's saying here. And for me, in my experience, my drug addiction, 1,000%. When I took a drink, I wanted a second. When I took my drugs, it was, fuck. And I wanted more. And once it's in me, my body tells my brain, whoa, we need more of that. I have this allergy, and now my brain's going to get it. And now if I don't have it for a day or two, my body's craving it. It's screaming to my brain. But even beyond that, now my brain has become twisted and warped. We have a disease that is also physical and mental. And that is called our obsession. We have an obsession of our mind that says, I remember what the body wanted, and I want more of that. The body's screaming for it, the brain's agreeing, and we can't overthink, outlove any of that stuff. The obsession, when it's on us, nothing that we have come around with has ever been able to do anything about it. So Silkworth was the first one to put out there to everyone that there's a physical component to this whole disease world. Illness then. Disease came in the 50s, and thank God it did. That's why our insurance pays for our rehabs once it became a disease. But at any rate, Silkworth put that out there about the phenomenon of craving and the allergy of the body. The allergy of the body, and then the obsession of the mind. That's the power that we have here. I love it. One line that's in here that says, frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. What does that even mean? Frothy emotional appeal. Now, I think it's the greatest recruiter to get us into rooms like this. Every one of us, I would bet you, is in here on some form of frothy emotional appeal. Save the marriage, save the job, the love of my kids, the threat of the judge, the threat of my health. Fill in the blank. Something in our lives, like, you got to stop. If you love me, you won't do this anymore. And I love my daughter with every ounce of me. There's one thing that's no doubt about it. I love my daughter. I couldn't stay out of the crack house. For the love of her, on her way to a birthday party, and I just swing by to see somebody, and I never make it. I never make it to my daughter's birthday. Her birthday, I'm on my way. Because I swung by just to stop in, just to have a little one. Phenomenon of craving, obsession of the mind. Done. Frothy emotional appeal is the greatest recruiter to get us into these rooms. There's nothing wrong with it from that standpoint. I just can't I can't get sober, and I can't stay sober on that. All the love I have for my daughter didn't keep me from that obsession becoming so strong that love didn't come into mind that day. I don't love her any less. It just didn't come into my mind. My mind is twisted and warped. The fear of dying in Bill Wilson's story. The doctor heard here, the Silkworth, tell his wife, he's going to die. Oh, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to die. There he was, drinking again a few days later. For me, my desperation has a short shelf life. What was terrible on Tuesdays, not so bad by Friday. And by Monday, I don't even remember it. That's the obsession coming back. So the frothy emotional appeal is a great recruiter to get us here, but we can't stay here. Dr. Silkworth says the message, which can interest and hold these type, must have depth and weight. More than frothy emotional appeal. In nearly all cases, their ideals must be grounded in a power greater than them if they are to recreate their lives. I want to do over. I'm from the Bronx, man. We always said, do over. You play in the street, a car comes, do over. We can recreate our lives. We get the do over. Okay, so the last place I want to talk about, and I do want you to come here now. I don't even have to look. It's XXVIII. The reason I remember that is that's my life. I. It starts there at the very bottom, and it continues on the next page for the first paragraph or two. My sponsor had me write, it's still here right in my book, why we drink and what happens. That's what he wrote at the bottom of it. And it starts with men and women drink. And these 2 paragraphs are like a home run. Should know these inside out. And a great exercise, if you haven't already done it. Take it line by line. And the important thing always is we can read this, but we have to see us in it. He'll say drink, we're going to know what we can relate to in any way, shape, or form. Men and women, I'll just say use, right? Essentially, because they like the effect produced. Even when I drank, it wasn't about a taste. And when I do my other stuff, there's no taste to it. Really, when you think about it, maybe a little bit here. But it's an effect. It's an effect. I was so quiet and shy, and this made me smiley and happy, and I could talk to a girl like Maria. I wouldn't do that ever, you know what I mean? So, like, it gave me something. And what's funny is at the very end, the very last, the same substance, all I wanted to do was shut out the freaking world. The effect there was to be quiet and withdraw and so it's the same substance, the first time to get out to the world, the last time to close the world, but it's still the same substance, but there's different effect. But we use because there's an effect by what we're using. And then it goes on to say, how about this line for all of us drug users? The sensation is elusive. For me, hit 1, the world was fine. It was like, so hit 2 is going to be better, right? But it just misses it by this much. And then 3, I'll add more to it. Number 3, a bigger hit. Didn't really get there. That sensation, that drink 2, hit 1. It was the world is okay. I can breathe. That sensation is elusive. Sure the hell was. Chasing, right? That phrase. Oof. And so while we may admit it injurious, I don't know if I should do this. I'm not sure. I usually follow it up with fuck. Right? Well, we may admit it's injurious because we're starting to do it. We can't, after a time, tell true from false. So again, you got to find your examples of like, what does that mean, true from false? Well, I know I shouldn't spend all the rent money tonight because it's due Friday, and I think my taxes are going to come back that I only filed yesterday. I know that's not going to happen, but I do it anyway. Like we'll talk ourselves into crazy things. I can't really discern because the obsession is so strong. It's pushing out logic and common sense, and it's coming up with any rhyme or reason it needs to get what it wants. I can't tell true from false. So if I'm using and I can't tell true from false, and I love that sensation, I love the effect that I'm doing it all the time, the alcoholic life seems normal. Now, of course it's not normal, but you do it for a little while, you just live in this world of insanity. It did become normal. You know, in 1998, I'm old enough now that Social Security sends you, hey, here's all the money you made all these years. And ideally you go ding, 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 all these years, right? And mostly, for the most part, it did. Oh, yeah, here's when I got that raise, here's 68, 72, 79, or whatever years. 1998, I made $300 for the whole year. And that was the first week of January, because of my last $300 of unemployment, and that's when it ran out, I didn't earn a penny the rest of 1998. When I get that chart now, it has all these things, and I go, boing! Like, oh, yeah. So the alcoholic life seemed normal. The year before that, I would chase the mailman on Wednesday because that's when he was coming with $300. Now, I used to make six figures, and now I'm chasing the mailman on Wednesday to get the $300. I'd find him on the route because I could have waited till 1 when he got to my house. I'd find him at 10 in the morning, and then I spend it all, and I got no money for 6 days, and I'm walking to soup kitchens, selling anything that I own. The alcoholic life seems normal. All right, so if the alcohol life seems normal and we can't tell true from false and we're looking for sensation, then what's going to happen? How am I living? I'm living crazy, right? So of course I'm going to be restless or irritable or discontent because I'm ducking and dodging and hiding and fighting or homeless or whatever it is. This is how I'm living now, so of course I'm restless, irritable, discontent. Who wants to be that? Nobody. Even human nature alone. Our default setting is we want comfort. We want to be comforted. We want to be cuddled. We want to be happy. We want to be secure. Well, if I'm restless, irritable, discontent, I need ease and comfort. Even if I don't think it, which I often think it, but even if I don't think it, my body knows it and my brain knows it instinctively. Well, we know how to get ease and comfort. When I'm in the middle of this angst and it's a hit, a drug, a drink is going to give me ease and comfort. It's not a lie. Whatever's going on, for a short while, it's going to be all is okay in the world. Ease and comfort that comes at once when we use. All right? Maybe we see others who can do it, but we can't. And so what happens? Once it's in me, go back to then the allergy kicks off. Well, the allergy kicks off and it shoots to the obsession. And now I end up on a spree. As long as my money lasted as was, or as long as my money and then yours, or hers, or what she did to get. Well, anyway, I won't go there. But at any rate, and then I end up in a spree. But I always end it, wherever it is, a day or 4, remorseful. What did I do again? Oh no. What am I going to say? How am I going to get out of this? Holy God. With a firm resolution not to do this again. How many times do you ever say that, right? And this is repeated over and over and over. All right, now, here's what I'm going to introduce. I'm close to ending. Here's where I'm going to introduce my hypocrisy. Oh, shit. This man who wrote this over 90 years ago, and I'm reading it today, he's a genius. He's describing me. You don't know me. He wrote this 90 years ago. The man is a genius. But now, the same guy who's a genius goes on to say, now, unless the same person, Luke, unless you have entire psychic change, there's little hope for your recovery. And I say, well, what do you know? You see my hypocrisy? The man's a genius describing the problem because I'm comfortable and used to that and I live it. Now he's telling me what I got to do. And I think he's a clown. Who's the clown? But I've relapsed so many times based on that same, what does he know? And then the last paragraph that I'll read, it says, and now he goes, on the other hand, and strange as this may seem to those who don't understand Luke, once this psychic change has occurred, the one now I get, psychic change, but the only way I see getting it is through the 12 steps, gets me that awakening, that spiritual awakening, and that's what has to happen. Once that happens, that same person who definitely seemed doomed, who had so many problems and despaired of ever solving them, easily, I don't know about easily, but he finds himself. Now it's easy, once you have the awakening and the change, able to control his desires. The only effort necessary being to follow a few simple rules. So don't take my hypocrisy. We learn from the mistakes of others. The man's a genius. He described me to a T, and then I don't listen to a word he says. So that's Silkworth. He then became our best advocate. At the Rockefeller dinner, he spoke, and he was at all sorts of things. He saw something working. Now, he should have squashed it. He's the director of a hospital. It's not his. He should have taken the idea as his own. He should have squashed the hell out of it, because these people are getting better, but he's got a board of trustees he's got to report to, and stuff like that. But he was a humble man, and he saw the result, and he had seen all the efforts that didn't work, and he was more than happy to be our best advocate. So that's what I get out of Dr. Silkworth, particularly the allergy, the obsession, all right? And then that paragraph that is how I lived and what happens if I don't do anything about it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Sorry.